Yo, what is going on, guys? SMH Super Mario Hoops back with some more hoops, and today we are here to discuss another player in our top 50 list in NBA history. So for today's video, we got none other than Scottie Pippen. So for Scottie Pippen, where would I have him on my top 50 list? Well, great question, and the answer is I have Scottie Pippen at number 35. Now, before we get into this video, I'm going to need you guys to drop a quick like on this video. Also, feel free to subscribe, hit that notification bell because it really does mean a lot. And then you'll get to see every time that I post a new upload, which is good for everybody involved. So without further ado, let's get into Scottie Pippen. So Pippen, over the course of his career, was a 7-time NBA All-Star, and this included 1990, along with the years from 1992 until 1997. In fact, he was also a 7-time member of the All-NBA team as well. He made first-team All-NBA from 1994 until 1996. He made second-team All-NBA in 1992 and 1997, and he made third-team All-NBA in 1993 and 1998. Now, over the course of his career, he made 8 All-Defensive First Teams every year from 1992 until 1999, and he made 2 All-Defensive Second Teams as well from 1991 and 2000, so over the course of a full decade. In fact, he was also the steals leader in 1995 for the NBA, and as we all know, he was a 6-time champion. These were the years from 1991 to 1993 for the first three-peat, and then 1996 to 1998 for a second three-peat. Now, over the course of his career, he had MVP shares for a total of 6 seasons where he received votes. 5 times he was a top 10 finisher, and the highest he ever placed was top 3 in the 1993-1994 NBA season. In terms of where he ranks in some all-time stats, he has 2,307 steals, which puts him 7th on the all-time rankings, a 2.0 steal per game average, which puts him about 18th in NBA history, 2.3 offensive box plus minus ranks him at 90th in NBA history, a 1.8 defensive box plus minus, which puts him at 38th in NBA history, a 4.1 box plus minus overall, which ranks him 35th all-time, a 67.3 defensive win shares in totality, which puts him 20th in NBA history, 125.1 win shares overall, which ranks him 45th in NBA history, a 63.2 VORP rating puts him at 24th all time, and then a 101.5 defensive rating, which ranks him 82nd in NBA history. Now, overall, this is a pretty solid resume of advanced stats. In fact, the average ranking among all these stats together for Pippen would sit at around 39th, 40th ranked on average, which is relatively close to the spot I have him on my list, which again is 35th. However, when it comes to Scottie Pippen, people will often value his defense the most. In terms of all defensive selections, Pippen has a total of 10, which is the 5th most by a player all time and the 2nd most by a non-big man behind only Kobe Bryant. In terms of Defensive Player of the Year shares, he received votes on 9 different occasions, which includes finishing 4th place, finishing 3rd place, and 2 consecutive years where he finished as the runner-up in the 94-95 season and the 95-96 season. In those 2 years, the winners were Dikembe Mutombo and Gary Payton, respectively. Now, when we regard his offensive play, things start to look a little bit more sketch. While Pippen often was responsible as a facilitator and a point forward, he wasn't entirely great on the offensive end. In fact, people will try to say that he was the true passer on the team, while MJ's only job was to score. But when you analyze the stats, MJ accounted for more assists and less turnovers than Scottie did. That's not to say what Scottie did in that aspect was bad, because to put it simply, both were very good at doing so. But it's a little bit overblown of an argument when praising Pippen just to diminish a player like Jordan. In terms of PER, Pippen ranks in at 127th all-time and has an 18.63 rating for his career, which is below the likes of players such as Al Horford, Stephon Marbury, David Lee, and Terrell Brandon, to list a few. And it's not like those guys are bad, but they were all, barely all-star caliber for multiple seasons, and likely none of them are going to be in the Hall of Fame, so it's a little bit worrisome for a player ranked 35th on my all-time list. When regarding his true efficiency as well, in terms of true shooting percentage, Pippen does not even find himself in the top 250 of all time. And when regarding Pippen's offensive scoring capabilities, he only was a more efficient shooter than Jordan from within 3 feet. In terms of mid-range, he wasn't. In terms of three-point percentage, he wasn't. But now let's hop into Scottie Pippen Pippen's playoff career. Now, Pippen was pretty consistent with his on-court influence in the playoffs for most of his career, sitting at a 108 to 102 offensive to defensive rating for both the regular season and the playoffs. And while his scoring output would increase in the postseason, his PER, his true shooting percentage, and his win share per 48 rating all did not. In fact, in terms of the postseason, when it came to how his facilitating abilities compared to that of Michael's, Pippen became an even less efficient distributor of the basketball in comparison to Jordan. Over his playoff career, he shot under his regular season career field goal percentage 30 of 43 series, below his regular season career three-point percentage in 26 of 43 series, and when regarding the second MJ era, Pippen only averaged over 20 points per game 2 times in 14 series with the Chicago Bulls following MJ's 1995 comeback. This also includes that 1995 season when Pippen was second in Defensive Player of the Year and 7th in MVP, where he had an abysmal shooting series against the Orlando Magic, which sparked their elimination in the second round following Jordan's return from baseball. To add to the fact, his stat line across the last 3 NBA Finals were 17 points per game, just under 8 rebounds a game, 4.5 assists on 39% shooting from the field, 28% shooting from 3, 77% from the free throw line, and about 50% true shooting. And in terms of Pippen's defensive assignments in the postseason, that is another overblown argument. Now, some people will say that Pippen guarded the best player, which sometimes was the case, but again, it was not always the case. For example, in the 1991 NBA Finals, Pippen would not guard Magic Johnson for Game 1. Now, he did for most of Game 2 after MJ picked up a couple early fouls. In Games 3 and 4, he guarded him in short spurts, and in Game 5, he did not guard Magic. But outside of that, MJ was the primary defender on Magic Johnson. And even if someone was to use this argument to elevate Pippen's defensive responsibility, saying he was the primary defender on Magic, well, Magic was still far more efficient that series than Pippen, so I don't really get what the argument is there. In 1992, most people recognize this was the MJ vs. Clyde showdown, where they were the ones going at one another, and even though Clyde was the best player, MJ kept him in low efficiency than players at the forward spot, such as Jerome Kersey or Buck Williams, to name a few. In 1996, Shawn Kemp was by far the best Sonic in that series and had his way out there, while Pippen struggled against him. And while many people remember this series for when the Bulls went up 3-0 before Gary Payton started guarding MJ to try and wear him down, well, what if I told you Jordan was still more effective than Pippen in those final 3 games, even though the narrative is usually against Jordan? Scottie averaged 13 points per game, 9 rebounds a game, 6 assists per game, on under 30% shooting from the field, about 22% from 3, and 75% from the free throw line in those final 3 games, and he did not shoot over 42% from the field in one of those games at all. But while MJ is extremely great offensively, so is the glove defensively, and when they needed Pippen to step up most for them, he wasn't able to. Rather, it was for one MJ, who nearly had a 20-point triple-double in the closeout game on Father's Day, along with Rodman's impressive defense and rebounding edge on Kemp. Now, I bring up Rodman, and you might sit here and say that Kemp wasn't Pippen's responsibility because it was Rodman's. And even though Pippen did guard Kemp sometimes in the series, that's a fair argument. But then I say, what about Detlef Schrempf? You know, the same player who outscored Scottie Pippen in that series, who shot 11% better true shooting in that series than Scottie Pippen, the same player who had a game-high 23 points in the final Game 6 of this series, because even though Schrempf was a great player, he was nowhere near as dominant as Shawn Kemp. And with Pippen's lateral quickness, it should have been an easier matchup for him, but it wasn't easy enough. And maybe in 1993, sure, Barkley was the best player on the Suns, as well as Karl Malone in 1997 and 1998, but they were still at least equally as efficient as their regular season logs, or even better, while the other complementary stars that MJ had to take on the defensive end, they were not. So to sum up Scottie Pippen, I believe that he is overrated. And listen, I am a Bulls fan. I have always been a Chicago Bulls fan. I have a ton of respect for what Scottie Pippen helped us do, and that was win 6 NBA championships. You guys know I love Derrick Rose. He's my favorite player of all time, but he's a top 3 Bull in NBA history. He's behind Michael Jordan, and he's behind Scottie Pippen. But the reason Scottie Pippen is overrated is not just because he's always been, but it's with the modern day fans. You know, all the people that say Jor fraud or air flu and try to elevate Pippen into a godly status is simply not true. I mean, this is a guy who started his college career as a student manager his first year, and believe it or not, was a point guard size and position for essentially his whole life before the NBA. But then in the NBA, he wasn't a more efficient passer than Jordan and wasn't a more consistent defender than Jordan, especially in the playoffs, along with his lacking ability to create for himself and score both at a high level and efficient one. And it's even funny how people will say Jordan played plumbers, but then say he was 1-9 without Pippen and needed him. But Pippen wasn't an all-star his first few years. He actually wasn't even a starter his rookie year, and MJ still found success with him in a building stage of his young career. But a lot of his development is also from Jordan. I mean, give Scottie credit for having that mentality to buy into what MJ was all about. Players such as Kwame Brown,
Rodney McRae,
that simply could not do it. But of course, Scottie Pippen could, and that's why he's even on this list, and we're even talking about him today. But there are plenty of other players that could have filled this spot with the Bulls' well-rounded defense and still found the same success. Now with MJ, I mean, we saw Scottie's tantrum in '94 and their meltdown. We saw him on the brink of the lottery in 1995 before MJ's return from baseball. So in all, Scottie Pippen is great, but I think he's 35th all-time type of great, and I don't think he should be ranked any better than that. And if he is, which I see a lot of people do, then I'm going to have to say he's overrated. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think about Scottie Pippen, if he's overrated, underrated, or properly rated. I mean, I'm a Bulls fan, so I'm trying to keep it as real as I can. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for me. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'm out. Peace.